You may have seen the video we did recently on 3D scanning this engine head. And I want to do a follow-up video because we've 3D scanned and CAD modeled it again. So what we had done in the first video is this is a rough cast head with just some minimal machining on it. We 3D scanned that and then we CAD modeled it. And since then, we've scanned it again and also CAD modeled it. So we're going to walk you through exactly what we did and why we did it. So here is an up-close view of the engine head, the original one that was cast. And then this here is the second iteration of it where you can see now it is machined down to the final shape. All right, so we're going to go into some software here and we're going to take a closer look at this project. So again, this is the rough scan data or the rough cast part. This is the raw scan data. Okay, so you can see scan data looks great, but as we've talked about lots of times, scan data is not CAD data. And if you watch that original video, you kind of see a sped up version of us creating that CAD file for this head. And something like this easily could take a couple of days to create that CAD model. That sped up version isn't even all of it. It was just kind of some of the major design work we did on it. But again, when you get into stuff like this with these very organic, free form intake and exhaust ports, and then of the expansion chamber, and then everything else going on, this can take some time to do. So let's bring up what that CAD model looks like, and we'll talk about why we CAD modeled it. So if you notice, let's turn off the mesh for a minute. This CAD model is pretty much the rough cast shape, okay? And why would we do that? Why would we create a CAD model for a rough casting? It's already cast. Well, the customer used this as a starting point for their machining. Because it has additional material, they need to know where that material is to create their CNC cutter paths of the final design and the final shape. Okay, so this was primarily used to know where the material is and then machine away down to their near net shape. Now, most of this stuff where it's planes and, pretty basic geometry, that's pretty straightforward. So why would we 3D scan it again if they've already machined it down to the final shape? Well, what they did is they took and they machined most of those planar surfaces down to where they should be. And then they machined the exhaust chamber and the intake and the exhaust port. And that was all done CNC. But after that, they went in and ported and polished it by hand and took out even more material and did some testing and got it to be exactly what they were looking for in terms of flow and, all the other characteristics and horsepower and compression and, however they come up with the right shape and design for the intake and exhaust and the actual expansion chamber. Because they're doing that by hand, they do not have it in CAD anymore. So now and all of these are the same on this particular head. So what do? Well, they sent it back to us. They indicated which intake, exhaust, and expansion chamber that they had done all this handwork to. We 3D scanned that again and then re-CAD modeled it. So let me show you what that looks like, okay? So let's hide the CAD model here for a minute. Let's bring back the cast part, okay, just for reference. So there's the cast part. And then here is the machined head. Let's hide the casting now. Now, we didn't scan, we scanned the whole thing so that we would have data to align it to the previous model. But then we only took the time to scan this chamber and intake and exhaust here really well. We kind of scanned the others, but you can see there's data missing because we don't care about them. This is the one that they did by hand, okay? And so now what I want to do is I want to show you a comparison of the difference between the two. So let's start with turning on both scans, and I'm going to come in here and do a view clip, and we'll flip this to the XY and we'll flip it around. And if we slide over this, kind of put it right there in the middle. I'll hit stop. You're going to see, and I'll show you the surface model as well, but here's the rough casting, okay? So in green is the rough casting, and you can even see, you know, some of the stuff in there from the original casting. And let's hide that rough casting, and there is the new finished machined part, okay? Or you know, the machined expansion, intake, and exhaust, right? So you can see, I'll turn that back on. Okay, so you can see the rough casting. You can see how much more material is in there and how much they took out. Now, I'm going to turn on the surfaces and turn off the mesh, and you'll see that even better. So this is now the actual CAD, okay? So again, here's rough cast of the CAD, okay? And we can actually turn on the solid block here for a minute. What I did is just isolated these surfaces. So there is the rough cast part, okay? I'm going to hide the solid body for a minute. That's just the surface. And then here is the surface of that machined area. So you can see some of these areas, how much material has been taken out. So, you know, basically the green to the yellow, okay? So again, just to reiterate, why they did this is they already had a CNC program that they created that was pretty close to what they wanted, but then they went in and hand worked this even some more and, you know, continue to tweak it and then send it back to us to 3D scan it and turn this into a CAD model. And they only need these areas because everything else that they had, let's turn off that view clip for a minute. Everything else they had, they were happy with, but they wanted to tweak that design a little bit more and then get that back into CAD. Okay, and we only need to do one of these because in this particular case they're all the same. But there's many times we'll do, you know, all of the cylinder expansion chambers in here. So I just thought this was kind of a neat project, and we'd share it with you to show you kind of the steps involved sometimes in doing these high performance racing heads.